huddle is a metaphor for our culture, imperfect like all metaphors. In that huddle is a bunch of folks that are black, brown, white, red, yellow, liberal, conservative, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu. We are slim, fat, short, tall, fast, and slow. We are analytical people, and we're impulsive people. We have some of the finest men on earth, and heaven knows we got a few rounders. We have been through the fires of Bear Bryant and Bo Schembechler or some such coach that knows exactly how to extract every ounce of our energy. Americans see all that and they resonate with it. They crave it. They take it and us into their hearts. The men who earn a place in the huddle have experienced the miracle of team. The training camp experience is unbelievable. It is day after day, week after week, 2 a day, 3 a day practices in the heat, often in 14 pounds of equipment. Many drop out, numbers thin, and everybody thinks about quitting. Trust me, everybody. For those who do stay, there is the opportunity to participate in the greatest team sport ever devised. It is the only sport in which every player needs every teammate on every play just to survive. We learn ever so slowly that our differences do not matter in the huddle. When we trudge in after each interminable workout, we know that sweat smells about the same on everybody's body. When we get busted in the mouth, that blood that trickles is the same color. Everybody's tired. Everybody's hurt. It is in this process that the miracle occurs. Men who've been raised to hate each other's guts become brothers. I've seen racists reformed. I've seen the most unlikely hugs after victories or losses. I've seen inner city kids invite country boys from the mountains to go home with them for Thanksgiving dinner, and I've seen those invitations accepted and reciprocated, thus changing parents' lives. Our players become brothers for life. It is what America is supposed to be, could be, might be in our best dreams.
The career of safety Kenny Easley was fleeting but dominant.
I don't have to think of what I have to do. It's just become real instinctive and I go out and do it.
The former UCLA All-American was selected 4th overall by the Seahawks in 1981 and proved his worth right away.
Kenny Easley with a pass interception.
He was named AFC Rookie Defensive Player of the Year, and for a player with his unique combination of toughness, intelligence, and anticipation, the sky was the limit.
Picked it off and went untouched.
The hard-hitting Easley patrolled the Seahawks secondary for each of his 7 seasons. He finished his career with 32 interceptions, with 3 of those picks returned for touchdowns.
A 55-yard interception return by Easley.
The 1984 Defensive Player of the Year was selected to 5 Pro Bowls and was a first-team All-Pro for 3 straight seasons. Easley was Seattle's first defensive superstar, and while his career may have been brief, he left an enduring legacy. For half a decade, number 45 redefined his position, and his impact lives on, with a well-earned spot in Canton.
All right, and with that, we'd like to welcome everyone to Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for our latest installment of the Heart of a Hall of Famer series. And if you haven't guessed by now, I would suggest pay attention to the videos. But our guest speaker today is Mr. Kenny Easley, and he'll be sharing a little bit today about his story on and off the field. And my name is Mike, and I'll be moderating today's session. The mission statement of the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, preserve its history, promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values that we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I know I'm excited, and hopefully you guys are too, to hear how those values, along with many others, have impacted Mr. Easley's career both on the football field as well as off. Now, before I turn it over to him for his opening remarks, I do need to thank a few people. First of all, I need to thank our folks at Extreme Networks for all they do for us here at the Hall of Fame and for schools across the country. I need to thank our teachers and administrators, especially Mr. Collins there at Oscar Smith there in Chesapeake, and all of our teachers for opening their classrooms and embracing the ideal that this message is important to our youth. To give you guys a sense of what classrooms we have connecting in today, we're joined by our host school there in Chesapeake, Virginia, but also by Four Peaks Elementary in Apache Junction, Arizona. We have 2 classrooms connecting in from Houston, Texas. We have a member of the 12th man out there in Washington and Lake Stevens at Hillcrest Elementary connecting in. And then we're waiting our last school from Fabius, New York. So we're going East Coast to West Coast today, and it's an exciting program for us here at the Hall of Fame for you guys to be a part of. Lastly, we need to thank our students. I mean, you guys get to ask the questions today, and I know I'm excited, and hopefully everyone else is, along with Mr. Easley, to hear kind of what questions you're going to ask today and where you're going to drive this program. And I want to close with a quote that a former teammate of Mr. Easley had named David Craig, and he said, quote, "No disrespect to my other teammates, but Kenny might have been one of the better athletes and football players overall that I ever played with. He was smart, physical, and intense. He was the kind of guy you wanted on your team," end quote. So please join me in welcoming one of the great players, one of the great men, and certainly a guy we're happy to have on our team forever here in Canton, Ohio, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Gold Jacket, Mr. Kenny Easley.
Thank you very much. This is indeed a great opportunity. Although the school is different, it's still the same high school. Come back to Oscar Smith and to share with you, to answer your questions about my life and my career. It is indeed a great honor. You know, to be the number 306th Pro Football Hall of Famer. Think of this. Pro football was started in 1920, 98 years ago. 98 years ago. There have been over 1 million plus athletes that have played in pro football. And there are only 318 with this new class in 2018 Hall of Famers. 318 Hall of Famers out of millions of football players. And I'm number 306 from Oscarsville High School. And what that represents to you out there, particularly the ones that are playing high school football now, is that you too can do it as well. You too can do it as well. So if you have a dream of being where I am today, I say to you that you too can do it. It may seem improbable, but you too can do it as well. And that doesn't look at the ladies, you know, out here, because whatever your dreams may be, as well, you too can do it. But you have to be steadfast in your beliefs. You have to be single-minded in your beliefs. And if you want it bad enough and you're willing to work for it, then you too can do it. So I'm going to turn it back over to the moderator so that we can get the program started.
All right. Thank you, sir, for those remarks. And just to piggyback a little bit on what you said, you know, we always say here at the Hall of Fame that our Hall of Famers didn't fall out of bed great. There's a lot of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears that goes on behind the scenes that, you know, the general public doesn't get to see all the time. And hopefully that's a little bit about what we can get into today is maybe how the behind the scenes shaped your life and your journey a little bit. So thank you for those opening remarks. And for our schools connecting in, just a little bit of housekeeping. Any social media you guys are doing today, please include our handle here at the Hall of Fame, which is at ProFootball, HOF. And then please include the hashtag HOF values for anything you're doing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Please include those handles and that hashtag for us. So, all right, we do need to get to the Q&A. So we're going to start with those students right in front of you, Mr. Easley. They're at Oscar Smith with our first question, and let them kick off the Q&A part of our program.
What year did you declare for the draft?
I was in the draft class of 1981. Like I said earlier, the day before the draft, Bill Walsh, who was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, and his entire defensive staff came down to UCLA to work me out. And after the workout, they were impressed enough with my workout that Bill Walsh said, if we draft you tomorrow with the 8th overall draft pick, would you be okay with that? And I said, absolutely. But the next day, the Seattle Seahawks had the 4th overall pick, and they selected me. And although I was disappointed with the draft, as I told you guys earlier, my dad, who was my very first coach, always told the kids that he drafted, the kid that he coached, that if you're given lemons, you make the best lemonade you can make. And so that's what I did. Instead of trying to engineer a trade, I decided that I was going to just try to make the best lemonade that I could make with the 4th overall pick.
And Mysteries, we have the draft coming up next week for any of our football fans out there in our classrooms, and there's a lot of media speculation and coverage around the draft nowadays. One of the more maybe overlooked parts of the draft is the interviews and getting to talk to the coaches and the team president, team GM. Mysteries, is there any insight you can give us on maybe what they look for besides athletic ability when they're looking to make a decision on drafting a player? Maybe something they saw in you that made them feel comfortable with making you that draft selection besides the athletic ability?
Well, drafting is so much different than it was back in the early 80s when I was, we didn't have a combine where we went to show our athletic skills. They were just thinking about those things back in those days. But I think that, in deciding who you're going to draft, I think the most important thing is what kind of person is this person that you're potentially bringing to your team? What kind of skills or what kind of attributes has he shown in his workout, in his interview, that makes you want to draft this individual? And so, I look at the draft today and, let me give you an example. They talk about, what this kid should, what type of attitude he should have, or what type of personality traits he should exhibit. And all those things are good to know. But the thing that they should focus on most is what type of athlete is this kid? What type of skill he's going to bring to our football team? And when I was drafted by the Seahawks, like I said earlier, I was very disappointed that I wasn't going to go to San Francisco. But I decided that, this is a great opportunity for me to show, what my skill set is and how I can fit in with any team that drafted me, because I was prepared to do whatever it took to be successful at the next level. And that's a big thing, to be skilled enough to say, regardless of what team drafted me, I was going to be successful for that particular team. And that was a big thing. That was very big. Because there are a lot of athletes out there who going to a certain team wasn't prepared to go to any team in the National Football League. You know, the thing about the National Football League draft is that you just never know what team is going to select you. But if they select you, you need to be prepared to be that stopper or that yardage maker that they need you to be. And I was just that for the Seattle Seahawks. I came in, I was an immediate starter, but the thing that was different for me was that I had played free safety basically all of my life, starting right here at Oscar Smith. And they put me at strong safety. I could have rejected that, but I didn't. I said to the team, I'm going to be the best strong safety that you have ever seen in the National Football League. That was my MO. That I was going to be the best strong safety that you could possibly have. You know, I could have said, no, I don't want to play strong safety. I want to play free safety. And yes, I did want to play free safety. And I was an All-American free safety in college. But when they put me at strong safety, I made my mind up immediately that I was going to be the best strong safety I could be.
Very good. Let's go out to Apache Junction there in Arizona with our next question. I see we have a student there ready to go.
Go ahead, Marie.
Did you want to become something else besides a football player and play in the NFL?
All right. And sir, the question there was, did you ever want to become something else besides a football player? And if so, what was that? If you didn't end up playing for the Seahawks and being a Hall of Famer and playing the NFL, what would you have done besides football?
That's a very good question. I had always wanted to be a pro football player, but I was prepared to do other things. I graduated UCLA in 1901. In fact, during my career, I had multiple businesses. I was a automobile dealer for 19 years. I had a Cadillac dealership. I had started in 1985 a magazine for the Seattle Seahawks called Inside the Seahawks. So I had done a lot of different things, but I was prepared to do something different if football didn't work out. I was very fortunate that it did work out. But I started a lot of different business. In fact, in 1990, Bill Smith and I started the Norfolk Nighthawks arena football team in the Norfolk Scope. No, this is 2004. And we managed the team for 6 years. So my education and my willingness to look at different businesses was very important for me. Right now, today, I run the largest flag football team in the city of Chesapeake. And we just started our fourth flag football season for kids from age 7 to 14 in the city of Chesapeake. So basically, what I'm saying is that my education gave me the opportunity to do multiple things here in Chesapeake. And I'm very excited about what we're doing right now with our flag football league in Chesapeake.
Mr. Easley, how important is it for you to be involved in the youth football side of things and the grassroots nature of the game? Is that something you always kind of had a passion for, or why has that been a calling for you?
Well, you know, I was asked when I first started flag football in Chesapeake, why wouldn't you do a tackle football league? Well, I understand better than probably most people the effects that tackle football have on the life, on the career, on the mental aspects of tackling. I just went through the concussion protocol for tackle football athletes. And it is a rigorous process that you go through. And I decided early on that I just could not be a part of placing kids in tackle football when I know the rigors and the concussion aspects associated with tackle football. And so I thought that I could benefit players better if we had flag football and we taught the kids how to tackle properly, how to compete properly, how to catch properly, how to run properly, and how to protect themselves properly. And so I decided that this was a way that I could help the kids coming up in tackle football, how to train properly in flag football. And it has been a great benefit to a lot of kids that have been through our programs in the last 3 years. And I am very proud of the stuff that we are doing in tackle football to show the kids how to do it properly in tackle football.
Absolutely. We're going to go out to Houston, Texas with our next question. Let's go to Reba's class down there at Youngblood and see if we have a student with a question for Mr. Easley there. Do we have a question from Reba's class down there in Houston?
Yeah, we've actually been doing a study right now on helmet safety and concussion risks. And so I have Juliana here who has a question for you. Did you ever have a concussion?
The question there, sir, was kind of building off of the last question there. Is the student want to know if you ever yourself had a concussion from the game of football?
Oh. There's no doubt about that. I've had multiple concussions, but back during the time when I played, there was no concussion protocol, and The only concussion protocol there was back when I played was you come to the sideline, the doctor will hold up 3 fingers, 4 fingers, 5 fingers, and ask you, how many fingers is that? And most of the time, I got it wrong. But the fact that I answered the question, in and of itself, they put me back in the game. I remember the last concussion that I suffered, we were playing Denver Broncos up at Mile High Stadium in Denver. I was the punt returner also for my team. And I'm sitting there waiting for the ball to come down, looking up in the sky. And this headhunter came down and just blasted me. Hit me right in the chin. I'm looking up like this, hit me right in the chin. I'm surprised it didn't break my jaw. And I was laid on the football field. They came out, asked me how many fingers did I see. I can't remember how many fingers I saw. I said 3, and the doctor said I was good to go. And they put me back in the game. Today, that should be impossible to do. But we still need to improve the concussion protocol because it's dangerous. It is just very dangerous. And I'm hoping that the concussion protocol will continually improve so that athletes that are concussed will not go back into a football game until they have had adequate time to get over the hit that concussed them to start with. And
sir, as we get into this conversation, I think it's important to note that, you know, no sport is safe, and football is obviously not exempt from that as well, as you can get hurt doing a number of different things. But it's important to note that I think there are groups out there and people out there that are making efforts and making strides to make the game of football as safe as possible by improving concussion protocol, by improving the way we teach kids to tackle, the improvements in equipment that we're starting to see. So while no sport is safe, and football obviously isn't, you know, exempt from that as well, it is important to note that people are making strides to make it as safe as possible for our young players and our players coming up through flag football into tackle, into high school and college and therefore. So certainly some dangers with any sport as well as football, but hopefully we're making strides to make it as safe as possible.
Well, look, there are great strides being made, and there's no doubt about that. But the fact is that tackle football is inherently dangerous. It is an inherently dangerous sport. We try to the best of our ability to make it as safe as possible, and the strides that are being made from back in the 80s when I played to today, great strides are being made. And I commend the National Football League on the strides that they have made in the sport. But the sport in and of itself is inherently dangerous.
And I would say as well, the sport itself can teach a lot of great lessons. You know, kind of what we're talking about today, the commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all great lessons that you can learn from organized sports in general. And we just happen to be a little bit biased to football and how you need to come together as a team and commit yourself to something bigger than yourself for that team to be successful. all great lessons that you can learn from the game of football that can make you successful off the field in whatever vocation or path you want to take in your life as we speak to these students. So
yeah, no doubt that football in and of itself has been very helpful to my career, to my life. The things that you learn in football in terms of the commitment, the integrity, the courage it takes to play football, the respect, and the excellence. All of these core values are necessary to become a successful football player and a Hall of Fame football player. Like I said, when you consider that in the millions of football players that have played in the National Football League, in the 98 years, there are only 318 Pro Football Hall of Famers. And when you try to wrap your arms around that, 318 Pro Football Hall of Famers. And Kenny Easley is number 306. It's hard to wrap your arms around that. It is really difficult to wrap your arms around that I'm number 306. But as I say to kids all the time, if you want it bad enough, if you're willing to work for it bad enough, and you do the things that are different than the other kids, then you can make it. You can be a Hall of Famer. You can be a success in life in whatever you decide you want to do. Teacher, doctor, lawyer, car dealer, banker, doesn't matter. Football and the sport of football teaches you the values that can make you a success at any stage or any profession in life.
And we've gone far too long in this program without getting up to the Pacific Northwest. So let's go up to Washington there with our school there with our next question for Mr. Easley. And nice and loud for us, please, as well, up there in Washington.
Do you have any advice for us to help us succeed?
All right, sir. The question was, I believe, from one of our, I believe a female student there was, what advice do you have to our students to help them succeed in whatever they choose to do with their lives?
Yeah, look. First and foremost, you have to get educated. There is no way that you're going to be successful in any endeavor unless you become educated. You have to learn, and you have to continue to learn. And that has to be a daily thing. That learning is continuing. When I left Oscar Smith, I'll never forget, and I write about this in my book that I'm hoping to get published next April. But the first class I had at UCLA was a class, History of the Supreme Court. It was, the class number was History 101B. And when I walked into the lecture hall, there were 860 kids in that lecture hall. That was more kids than my high school at Oscar Smith. I believe we had about 820 kids in the entire school from the 9th to the 8th to the 12th grade. And I walk into one class and it has 860 kids in it. And I mean, that's an awesome thing if you haven't been in a class probably larger than 20 kids. But education is the key to not only my success. If I didn't have education, there was no way that I could understand, adapt, and learn the plays at UCLA on defense. And then to go from UCLA to Seattle, where it is much different. Once you enter the National Football League, where you got the support as a collegiate athlete, you didn't get that support as a professional athlete. Because once you go into the National Football League, the defensive coordinator walks out in front of an audience just like this. He goes up to the front, he draws the plays up on the board, and he said, we're going to do this play, and this play tomorrow. There are no questions asked as to, hey, coach, what do I do as a strong safety? Because he's going to tell you, you take a look at your playbook and you be ready to do it tomorrow. I have to have a certain amount of education to understand how we're going to run that play tomorrow. So education is critical, absolutely critical to any type of success you're going to have in any type of organization, in any type of business, in any type of success you want to have. You have to be educated, and you have to be able to take your education and translate it to a different level at different levels. If I didn't translate my education from Oscar Smith to UCLA, there was no way possible that I was going to be able to do the things that I was asked to do on the football field at the collegiate level. And from the collegiate level to the pro level, you have to be able to translate your education to a different level at the pro level. Same thing. You go to school to be a teacher. You have to improve your education from your college to the collegiate level. So it's just a fact that you have to have continuing education.
Very good. Let's go back down to Houston, Texas, for our second classroom down there. I believe it's Mrs. Starling's class for our next question for Mr. Easley this afternoon.
Go ahead. How did your youth football influence your education in high school to get you to college?
And I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time for us?
How did your youth football influence your education in high school to get you to college?
I believe, sir, the question is tied around how did your experiences in youth football in high school get you ready for your football career at UCLA and college? So what lessons did you learn, youth football, high school, that you then took with you to college?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, because the first lesson I learned was from a teacher I had in 9th grade named Miss Harris. She was my algebra teacher. And I wasn't doing very well in her class. And early in the morning, we used to, before school started, we used to, when I say we, a bunch of the athletes would play basketball early in the morning. We'd get there early and we'd be playing basketball. And so Miss Harris told me, she said, look, she said, unless you pass algebra, you're not going to be able to go to college, because it's one of the required subjects. And she said, I want you to come to my class before school starts, and I will help you with your algebra. Now, this meant that I couldn't play basketball with my buddies. So I had to make a decision. If I wanted to go to college, if I wanted to be an athlete, was I going to forego going to Miss Harris's class and getting the extra help? Or was I going to continue to play basketball? I made the decision that I was going to get the help from Miss Harris, because I knew that was important for the eventual success that I was going to endure. So I gave up playing basketball. I went to Miss Harris's class early in the morning, and I became proficient enough in her class in algebra to pass the class, go on to algebra 2, go on to trigonometry. But my point being is that had I not made the decision, had it not been important enough for me to make the decision to go to these early morning classes, there is no way that I would have made it to be eligible to go to college my senior year. So yes, there is no doubt, as I said earlier, continuing learning is going to be important for all of you. Every single person sitting out there today, listening to me right now, you have to continue to learn. That is the one thing that is going to determine who you are and what you are in life, is your education.
Absolutely. Sir, let's go out to those students in front of you for our next question. So those students right there in front of you at Oscar Smith.
Mr. Reed, you have a young lady got a question? Or gentlemen, excuse me. Ready? Next round.
I want to know, what is your favorite backbone you want to be the best, or you encourage you to become more successful in life, and you much want to do it all this. It's always lift you up when you're there.
Did you get a question, Steve?
Not well.
It was he wanted to know who was your biggest role model in life, person you kind of always looked up to, when you were kind of struggling in tough times in the NFL and college or high school. Who was that one person that you really kind of looked back on and tried to model yourself after?
Well, that's a very good question, because I've had different role models at different times in my life. My very first role model was my dad. And my dad was a former Marine, and he was my first coach. And I was playing baseball, 10 years old. And my dad used to hit the ball to the players, the first baseman, the second baseman, third baseman, directly to them. They catch the ball, come in. But I was playing right field. And my dad used to hit the ball to center field. And now you gotta imagine, if any of you play baseball, I'm lined up in right field, he's hitting the ball to center field. And I would run as hard as I could run, but I just could not get to that ball. And I was 10 years old, and I started to cry. And my dad told me, he said, as long as you cry, you're gonna stay out there until you can catch this baseball. And it sounds cruel, but it taught me a lesson. It taught me probably the most valuable lesson that I could have learned as a 10-year-old kid. And that lesson was, you never, ever give up. He had me out there for 4 days trying to hitting that ball to center field. And I got mad enough that I said to myself, I'm going to catch this ball. And on the 4th day of hitting balls to center field and me running from right field, on the 4th day, I finally caught that ball. And what that did for me on that day was the greatest thing that probably ever happened to me, is that I learned then that there was nothing I couldn't do. You see, because I thought originally I couldn't get it. I was crying because I didn't think that I could catch it. But when I got mad enough, because I knew my dad was not going to stop hitting that ball to center field. He was going to make me do it until I caught it. That was the greatest first lesson I learned about competing, was that I could do it. When I became conscious enough to understand that I could do it, greatest lesson I ever learned. Because after that, there was nothing that I didn't believe that I couldn't do. There was absolutely nothing that I believed that I could not do. Then when I got to UCLA, freshman, when I went to UCLA in 1977, I was 6'1", 177 pounds. Rolling. UCLA had just won the Rose Bowl the year before. They had a free safety who was a senior. His name was Michael Coulter. And he was projected to be the starter. In fact, I was number 4 on the depth chart at safety. They had a senior. They had a junior who was number 2. They had another freshman free safety from California who was number 3. And I was number 4 on the depth chart. So there was no way that they were anticipating me playing anything. By the end of summer camp, our first game was against the University of Houston in the Astrodome. The defensive coordinator for UCLA on the airplane to Houston came back, gave me an envelope, and gave Michael Coulter an envelope. And inside of those envelopes, it said that Michael Coulter was going to start the game against the Houston Cougars. And Kenny Easley was going to start the second half of the game. I had gone from fourth on the depth chart to second on the depth chart. Michael Coulter played the first half of the game, played brilliantly. As far as I could see, he didn't make any mistakes. But the second half of the game, that defensive coordinator came to me and said, "You're up." I went out there. I told myself, do what you have done all your life. And that is compete. I started the second half. I made 9 tackles, broke up three passes. Michael Coulter never started another game at UCLA. And that is because of what my dad taught me as a 10-year-old. You never, ever give up. You know, I could have been content. I could have been content enough to just be on UCLA's roster as a freshman. But when that coach gave me the opportunity to play as a freshman, I reverted back to all the things that I had did at Oscar Smith. Let me tell you this. When I played at Oscar Smith, I was the quarterback, I was the free safety, I was the kicker, I was the kick returner, I was the punter, and I was the punt returner. I did that for 3 years at Oscar Smith, my sophomore, junior, and senior year. I did all those things for 3 years. So when I got to UCLA, I was prepared to compete. And I got the opportunity to do it. I seized the moment. Michael Coulter never started another game at Oscar Smith, nor has he talked to me since then either. But I went forward. And each year I got bigger, I got stronger, I got better. And by my senior year, I was 6'3", 210 pounds of nothing but a killer. Wound up at 12 yards off of the line of scrimmage. There was a running back or receiver in college football that wanted to run into Kenny Easley at 12 yards with a 12-yard head start. So my point is this to any of you sitting out there, and this includes the ladies, whatever you want to be in life, if you want it bad enough, you will study to show yourself approved. And you will do whatever it is physically you need to do. Success is lonely. You see, because when I was out here running the streets of Chesapeake, when I was in high school, I couldn't find anybody on my football team to want to go and run with me at 5:30 in the morning. That's passion. Your passion will make you do things that you will not ordinarily do. Your passion will drive you. Your passion will wake you up at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, go and run. And you'll go out and run at 5:30 in the morning, and you will come back at 7:30, and you will lay back in the bed, and your passion will wake you up and say, it's now time for you to go lift weights. Your passion will drive you. Listen to your passion, because it's the driver. I couldn't find anybody to go run with me at 5:30 in the morning, but I did it because of my passion. And if you got passion about anything, it will make you do what is necessary to be successful. Your passion will make you do it to be successful. So listen to your bodies, listen to yourself, your passion. If you got passion for something, it will never ever feel like work to you. Football didn't feel like work to me, because I love football and football loved me back. For 28 years, I played football. And for 28 years, that was my greatest passion. So listen to your passion.
Very good, sir. I'm not sure I can end it in a better spot because we got about 60 seconds left. So I'm going to wrap it right there. And I'm going to say I'm not sure I want to line up 12 yards across from Kenny Easley nowadays, yet alone back in the heyday coming out of UCLA and for those Seattle Seahawks. So thank you, sir, for the words today, the advice today. Hopefully everyone was taking notes. I know I have my notes here. There's a lot of things we can take away from our talk today. And for you, sir, thank you extremely for spending time with our youth today, talking about the game of football, talking about the values you learned from this great game. And I'm going to unmute all of our microphones. We can give one final round of applause to our guest speaker today, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Kenny Easley.
Thank you very much. It's been my great pleasure. I hope all of you sitting out there all across the United States, if you have a passion, follow your passion, because your passion will lead you to great success. Have a great life. I hope that each and every single one of you, under the direction of my boss today, will be as successful as you can be and make an impact on somebody else's life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, from David Baker, Joe Horgan, George Veras, on down to our Youth and Education Department. Sincerely appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you soon here in Canton, Ohio, maybe for a little less stressful weekend this August as opposed to last year. So thank you again, sir, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much.